Laguna Salada and recirculating that water back around and out into the Sea of Cortez actually helps that sweet spot of when the monsoons actually get triggered. So if there's a fraction of a degree of temperature increase with Laguna Salada circulating water back around to the Sea of Cortez, that could actually have the triggering mechanism for enhanced monsoon cycles too, but also less severe monsoon cycles where they're more prolonged and less intense. So that's an interesting part of the component that we wanted to bring forward with that concept.
Well, I would definitely like to leave that to the PhDs. We can increase evaporation, especially year round. One thing that I really learned, I live in Prescott, Arizona. And one thing I really learned this year in a big way is places like Colorado get their biggest snow when the low pressure zone and jet stream drop down towards San Diego, meaning the jet stream flows directly over Laguna Salada, the Salton Sea, on its way up directly into the Colorado River Basin. You know, a question I'm going to end up having is, all right, how much moisture or northern Gulf moisture is entrained by those winds and that storm flying over it? Dr. Mitchell and folks at the Desert Research, others, their essential model deals with sea surface temperatures in the northern Gulf of California when they go from like 29 to 30 degrees Celsius some number of days after June 1st, typically somewhere between 30 and 45, I think. Essentially, the air above it gets moist enough and hot enough that it attains a critical mass of buoyancy, which breaks through a local boundary layer by heavier, drier air, allowing that monsoon to start. Perhaps we can make it a little earlier. We'll see. But we'll leave that to those experts.
Yeah, and that question Francisco asked again was, that probably is by different factors during that time period. We don't know until we study it. And that's kind of what Rob was mentioning. We're going to take a deep, hard look and have two different agencies look at what that is. So we're excited. We're ready to launch our next portion of the conversation. Here with us again that we heard earlier is Mr. Kerry Morrison of the EcoMedia Compass. Thanks for sharing your music earlier. That was really nice break from us talking and us just dragging on the conversation. My wife was joking. She's like, "This is longer than Coachella," and I said, "Yeah, but it's more entertaining, right?" So with that, I'm going to have to step out, but I'll be listening in. Kerry, take it from here. Thanks so much. I really appreciate all your time and energy put into the Salton Sea so far. Maybe you can talk about Desert Shores collaboration, and that's something that's near and dear to our hearts that we're going to try and step into the next phases of getting funding for. So I appreciate you jumping in and participating in the call today.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nathan, Aegis, and all of the fantastic people that are working for something bigger than ourselves here today. So it's wonderful to hear some visions of a brighter future for this place, something beyond just having to mitigate, something where we have the opportunity to create something great. I'll touch on a little bit about the EcoMedia Compass, a little bit about Desert Shores, and then I'm going to go into some more history and work that we've done, some of that in partnership with Aegis, and some of that independently to support the work of water import. So the EcoMedia Compass is a 501c3 nonprofit. Our team founded 10 years ago. Our mission is awareness, education, and solutions for environmental challenges through the arts, science, and community. And we have been giving the community opportunities and tools to get involved with restoration initiatives for the last 10 years. Many of the events that we've worked on are around Salton Sea, quite a few different activities in Sacramento and throughout Southern California. We have a physical restoration project on the ground in Desert Shores that we have done quite a bit of work with Aegis on. And a lot of also that we have done is education, so that when residents and the public want to get involved, they know how, and they know some of these solutions for and about the Salton Sea. So I'll touch on the project that we have been working on with Aegis, called the Desert Shores Restoration Project. And so this is a place in the west shores of the Salton Sea where the canals, as you can see behind me, have unfortunately become cut off from the main body of the sea. And because the water level of the Salton Sea is going down a little bit every year, there are a number of different residential communities that have been left stranded. These areas, as you can see behind me, used to have fantastic habitat. All these little divots are fish nests. This area used to be full of birds and was a really beautiful place with houses and docks and happy families and swimming, and somewhere that we would have wanted to live probably 15, 20 years ago. And that's not the case today. What we've seen is the watercolor has changed drastically as it's dried up. So in addition to drying up and having the opportunity to create significant air quality concerns because of dust, it's also become an area that there's unhealthy water to live next to. I've seen it go from bluish to brownish to greenish to mustard yellow to orange, and now it's a deep blood red. I was there, spent the night in Desert Shores at one of those houses behind me, and you get up and see what's not salty is a blood red color. And that's not anything that anyone should live next to, especially if they came and invested in their retirement home and their piece of the American dream. And this is happening in many different places around the sea. And Desert Shores is an area that we wanted to put in a restoration project where it would benefit residents and wildlife. And we'd seen projects worked on, argued over, what have you, for many years, and none of them were being undertaken where people actually live. And that seems like a mistake. So the goal of this project is to take it from this today and refill it. So we have two opportunities for water. Well, first off is a berm. The EcoMedia Compass owns this land. Our 501c3 owns this property here. Aegis has helped with organizing. We've been working with the local community for a few years to get the project on the Natural Resources Agency's desk. They said they would pay for it and start with this project by at least putting water into it and putting in a pumping and aeration system. So this would bring back a nice place to live for these people. And then a subsequent phase for this project is treating water quality. We have the opportunity to either pump in Salton Sea water and desalinate and blend water, or there are some wells that were supplying water to the West Shores that have been decommissioned. It was very hard water, and so they've increased a soft water supply with a new pipeline for the West Shores, and now there's an opportunity for that well potentially. So there's a few different sources where this water could come from, but this revives a local community while our teams and our agencies are working on a grander overall fix. There's been a lot of community support for this over the years. We've held many Earth Day events, a lot of petitions. We built a Poseidon pump barge. This has a massive water pump where we can float this and pump water in as a temporary refiller. While that's going, we've had state assemblymen come and make promises. And a lot of people in the community really, really support this project. And so this is actively working. We have engineering plans in the works. We just got surveying sponsored. So we're going to be working in that independently. The state said they're doing this as well, but they haven't been communicating with any of the residents. And quite frankly, we don't believe them until we see it. So we're going to be doing this as well. We have a great project team working on this, and we're excited that this is moving forward. And we started a community garden there last week to actually get something grown in the spirit of restoration. And we'll have an event at this site on Earth Day, April 18th as well. All of these projects of this scale are like Band-Aids in the grand scheme of things. If we're looking at 100 miles of shoreline, the Salton Sea is much bigger than projects of 60, 100, even 500 or 1,000 acres. There are tens of thousands of acres that are becoming exposed. And one of the main reasons that I personally got involved with this is because we have so much opportunity here to create something really incredible for our future. And we're hoping that it looks something like it did in the past. There's going to be some different ways to separate and blend salinities, but we have a ton of potential for life here. When I was a very small boy, my mom passed away from a lung condition. And I know what it sounds like to hear people coughing every morning when you wake up as a little kid. And a lot of the people behind me in this picture are going through that as well. I know a lot of them. And that doesn't have to happen. And the best way to keep dust from blowing, the best way to have opportunities for saltwater farming, for habitat, is to have a sustainable water supply for future generations. So we've been very supportive of the concept of adding water from the ocean. In some of the presentations today, you've heard a lot of perspectives on how this can happen. As we know, the Salton Sea is close to one big body of water and essentially no others. The Colorado River no longer reaches the ocean. There's been a couple pulses where they would save water up and see if they have just enough to let some trees and small fish fry have a chance at life. We don't have any more freshwater resources, and it doesn't make sense to use the last of our drinking water to pour into a gigantic salty lake. What does make sense is to use an unlimited supply of ocean water and using an existing topographic downhill. I'm going to go into today some clips of history of the last couple years and some media pieces that we've put together. We've produced a few full-length films, Salton Sea, and quite a few different documentaries and news pieces. And I'm going to kind of DJ some of the past and future of what this can look like. And a lot of it centers around this. This is the Coyote Canal. And this is an existing canal that was built by Mexico in the 50s and 60s to take care of extra water coming off the Colorado River, extra farm runoff. And they had routed that water up into Laguna Salada. And until the late 80s, there was quite a bit of water in that valley. There is still water currently flowing in this canal. This was taken a couple years ago, and there's actually more water now flowing than there was then. Someone a couple weeks ago sent me a video of them in a boat when this is higher, just a couple months ago, taking a boat up the Coyote Canal for miles. So to us, the easiest way to do this from an engineering perspective is to complete the canal that has already been well underway and has already started and is already flowing water north towards the Salton Sea from the ocean. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into a bit more about the people of the Salton Sea, who this is affecting, and some of the people that have been very supportive of this over the years. And in my term as executive director for the last 10 years, I also ended up sitting on the board of the state park. I became president of the Chamber of Commerce. I became mayor of the West Shores for 2 terms. And if you ask people that live around the sea what should be done, they say finish the canal. Why don't you dig a canal from the ocean? It's 230 feet below sea level. People know that. And this is starting to gain overwhelming support. So I'm going to hop into, let's see. Actually, okay, we're going to get rid of one piece of the history. We're going to hop into one of our trips with Al Jazeera who came. We took a film crew to this area and drove much of this canal route and met with the Kukapa tribe. And we're going to share a piece of that and then step into a recent Salton Sea Water Import Forum that we had with 7 of the engineering teams that have plans to import water. Aegis has been putting one of those plans together. It's very comprehensive. It probably has the most beautiful future for the Salton Sea. With the filling of Laguna Salada, with the shipping channel option. That's my favorite. It's the most beautiful outcome. But the most important thing is to get water to the Salton Sea. And there are teams working on this. So we're going to learn a little bit from that. There have been resolutions passed by virtually all of the cities in the Coachella Valley over the last year and a half, 2 years. We'll learn a little bit about that and some more of what this region looks like. So without further ado, we are going to hop right into Laguna Salada. Share my screen for you here. All right. Okay, can anyone see this? I see Norm. Can you give me a thumbs up if you could see a screen? The Salton Sea is shrinking and exposing toxic dust. Fantastic, Norm. Thank you. We're still getting used to a few too many windows at once. Here we go. We're going to go for a bit. Wave your hand if you cannot hear the sound to the video.
Over time, it's become increasingly salty.
The rising salinity is killing off the fish, and that starts a dangerous domino effect for over 400 species of migrating birds who would normally stop here.
Those birds are going to have to go somewhere else. The challenge, however, is that we dried up most of the wetlands in the state of California, so there's not too many other places for them to go.
Where do you recommend we go? Is there a fairly safe?
But how do you save a shrinking sea when there's not enough water to go around? I crossed the border into Mexico with a group of activists who want to bring water back to the Salton Sea by connecting it with the Sea of Cortez. They're looking for possible routes. This is the Laguna Salada. It's a dry lake bed in Mexico, and it's covered in this fine dust. It's what the Salton Sea looked like before 1905, and some activists fear that if the state of California doesn't act fast, then the Salton Sea could look like this again. And so they proposed a bold plan that would take water from the Sea of Cortez and channel it across this dry lake bed and send it all the way down into the Salton Sea.
So that's one clip from Al Jazeera. We're going to hop into our recent Salton Sea Import Forum. So on January 31st, we held the Salton Sea Water Import Forum. Aegis was the first presenter for this, and there were 6 other teams that have developed engineering plans to add water to the Salton Sea. These Cordoba Group, GEI, Geothermal Worldwide, Quadrant 2, Sea2Sea Development Team, and Sefton Water Technologies all have plans and know how to do this, quite frankly. Some of these concepts are very complementary. Some of them are competitors. Overall, what we've been doing at the EcoMedia Compass is providing a forum and education for how to add water. We mirrored the way that this was presented to the way that the state has had these plans sitting on their desk for years. So these teams have their plans downloadable on the Natural Resources Agency's website, and they haven't acted on them for a couple of years. The Natural Resources Agency is required to have a long-term plan for the Salton Sea's restoration by the end of 2022. We're happy that they're supposedly working on that, but once again, we don't thoroughly believe anyone anymore. So some of these things need to be done ourselves in parallel. And what we're doing is organizing these conversations and these teams to be as high up as they can possibly be in the media, in the public sphere, so that there are obvious solutions and not everything has to be rethought. So I'm going to play part of this water import forum, and then we're going to step into some of the progress where local city governments have been adopting resolutions with a team called the Salton Sea Coalition that we've been working in partnership with. So we'll go for now. These also are some of the people at the Salton Sea. It's not just a dry place. There are a lot of lives, faces, and animals. I love watching that piece because it's a reminder how many lives are touched by this. Wildlife and so many people that have been interacting with this place.
Possible solutions to restoring the Salton Sea. There will be a Salton Sea water import forum this.
So we'll hop into the next part, which explains a bit about some of the political action that has been going on. Can you still see that, Norm? Look good?
People finally came together to complement each other's work and bet on innovation and new technologies. They acted just quick enough to not repeat the history of failed water projects. The people and agencies simply began to act in the mindset of the greater good. Resolutions, what's the Salton Sea Coalition? How can we help?
Well, I have a little short PowerPoint. If I can share, if you can share the screen for me, I'll put it up here. I'll just read through this. Our Salton Sea Coalition is headquartered in the Coachella Valley. We're volunteers. We've been active for about 3 years. In the past 2 years, we got support resolutions from all of the Coachella Valley cities for ocean water import, as well as the Torres Martinez tribe and the College of the Desert. Let's see, next slide. Okay. In 2019, all 9 cities passed resolutions similar to this one from Indian Wells. The City Council adopted a resolution on November 7th, 2019, declaring support for comprehensive analysis and review of all 11 ocean water import alternatives as a long-term solution for the restoration of the Salton Sea, and that the results be incorporated into the SSMP. We were very happy with this. It was a nearly unanimous vote on the part of the city council members, and it reflects what I think most of us have experienced is when you go out and talk to everyday people, this is the solution that is just obvious to most people, that we need water. The only place you can get it is either the Sea of Cortez or the Pacific Ocean. And that's the first big step to restoring the Salton Sea. In 2019, November, the state's Salton Sea Management Plan decided that a feasibility study would be required of these ocean water import proposals. They received no response on 2 requests for proposals to conduct this study. And as I guess Kerry has found out, they're saying they'll have a reviewer on board in March of this year.
And they have reportedly, as far as what I hear in our channels, found a reviewing team. They're being very secretive about this for whatever reason. There were some promises by heads of the Natural Resources Agency that this would be a very transparent process. We still can't see what's going on, so we have some concerns there, but we'll continue.
That was news from today from the CNRA's Arturo Delgado.
Right. In 2020, the cities were concerned about those delays and the fast approaching deadline for a long-term solution, which is December of 2022. So 7 of the 9 cities so far have passed follow-up resolutions. Indian Wells, Rancho Mirage, and Cathedral City adopted similar resolutions. Their resolutions declared continued support for comprehensive analysis of ocean water import alternatives as part of the long-term solution. 2, encouraging the state to aggressively pursue the creation of independent reviewer panel. And 3, to meet the deadline of December 31st, 2022 for a long-term solution for the Salton Sea. 4 cities, Desert Hot Springs, Coachella, Palm Desert, and La Quinta, called for an engineering analysis funding. Their resolutions read that the Salton Sea Management Plan allocate $2 million of the $507.5 million in unused and available funding for restoring the Salton Sea for an immediate comparative engineering review of ocean water import proposals accepted by the state in 2018. Palm Desert requested that the SSMP allocate sufficient funds for an immediate comparative engineering review. So we felt these were pretty strong statements of support for some forward motion on evaluating ocean water import and actually, hopefully, bringing it into being.
Since this video was made, we have had yeses from Indio as well, and from the Border Patrol Union. So we have some paperwork to finish with actually getting those resolutions signed, but those are tentative yeses, and I foresee this continuing. We're working into Imperial Valley with the other cities in pretty much unanimous support for this. This is what people want. I'm going to step into one other piece of history that shows a film that we did a couple of years ago, which has a lot about water import and quite a bit of footage and interviews with people that have been working on this to give you a bit more context. So this is a clip from a film that we did called SOS, the Salton Sea Walk. Which documented the walk around the Salton Sea by an activist named Randy Brown. We worked with that team to co-produce this film and have 2 years of awareness, education, and events around that campaign. And we'll have a couple minutes from this video.
It's needed to prevent the dust storms, to prevent the problems. It's just too little too late. The only reliable alternative then is a sea-to-sea alternative, either through pipelines or through a canal lock lift system like the Panama Canal.
Professor
some sort of connection to the open ocean.
The Sea of Cortez lies about little more than 100 miles south of the Salton Sea, and it is connected to the Pacific Ocean.
I will say that there's going to be some people sharing a few different project views. Some of these are very complementary. Some of these have some slight differences, but overall it is about adding water. So there are some variables that can be figured out, but figured this was important to share.
In other words, all the water in the world lies 100 miles away, and it happens to be a natural river channel.
We believe that the new river has the capacity to bring ocean water from Mexico to the Salton Sea. And in a quantity enough, if you use both the New River and the Alamo, to stop the Salton Sea from going down.
Naturally letting it flow through those two creeks into the Salton Sea would be the best avenue.
Bring in extra water, desalinate that, and provide that to local communities on top of the water that you need to sustain the level of the Salton Sea. Solve the dust issue and solve the water crisis in one blow.
Desalinating the water and making it viable drinking water so that the state of California can utilize it, the country of Mexico can utilize it. It's naturally flowing to us now as it is, and if it's fresh desalinated water, it won't have an effect on our regular drinking water.
This is a tremendous asset. This is an area on the planet Earth where ocean water will flow by gravity.
Salton Sea is 230 feet below sea level. In between, there's a dry lake bed. In between here, there's a dry canal called the Coyote Canal, leading almost
no longer
halfway
dry.
from the Sea of Cortez to the Salton Sea.
We'd essentially expand this canal to handle our 1.5 million acre feet on the Mexico side, and then we'd excavate a 35 by 20 foot deep canal for 45 miles through Imperial County. That's a gravity fed, no pump canal at approximately 900 million gallons a day.
From an engineering standpoint, you're just putting a straw from a higher pond to a lower one.
One of the strategies we often suggest to everyone is that you take the Salton Sea and you separate it into more manageable parts, an environmental part for the wetlands and the existing projects that are running now, like Red Hill Bay or the Backbone, which are all important, viable projects. And then a water desalination filtration component to make the water usable for the fish, and then a dust management or dust elimination component, which is what C2C is. And C2C just is simply importing approximately 1.5 million acre feet to raise the lake level where there is no exposed playa and there is no dust. That just kills dust. Filtration desal guys do their part to make the water quality better, and the existing environment projects are critical for the Pacific Flyway. So we really need 4 or 5 components working in harmony to fix the Salton Sea.
It would be a huge undertaking, probably along the lines of a Panama Canal-sized project. But I think if you do the math of not doing it or not doing anything and allowing the dust storms, allowing the toxic dust, allowing the people to get sick, allowing the people to die, and then look at the cost of cleaning all that up after the fact, some studies have already shown that it would be far less expensive to do something like a C2C project than it would be to clean up the aftermath of a huge ecological and health disaster. It would be expensive, but I think it would be worth every penny, and it would pay itself back in the long term.
This has huge potential benefits for Mexico. They could turn the Laguna Salada playa into a Riviera of their own, which would be enormous for jobs and for the economic welfare of Mexicali and that region.
So the basin is comprised of 8 ranches on the west side, 1 large property on the east side. Those property owners are very much in favor of this project and helping the Salton Sea.
Mira, los habitantes de la zona de la Laguna Salada, los que realmente estamos en esta zona, estamos apoyando esta oportunidad que se nos está dando, porque va a ser una forma de desarrollar los grupos humanos, la comunidad. Y esa es una de las experiencias que tenemos que explotar para que toda la comunidad crezca, salen a otras partes, y eso tenemos que evitarlo.
So the economic development component of our project, what's in it for the locals, what's in it for Mexico, is that we'll hire them to run our project down here. We'll support their farming operations. We'll buy products from them. So we'll take approximately 150,000 acres of dusty land, cover it with water and wetlands, and that will reduce dust in the region.
Bueno, lo importante es conseguir primero un trabajo estable en la zona y tener rentabilidad en los proyectos que tú hagas. Eso es importante para nosotros. Bueno, la comunidad que representamos aquí, 500 familias, sí estamos dispuestos a trabajar con los Estados Unidos en este proyecto. Que este proyecto nos ayude a un mejor nivel de vida.
We can not just save the sea, we can create jobs.
We're talking about high-tech engineering jobs and energy jobs. This would be an economic boom for the entire region.
This could be the job experience that gets this country back on the run.
You're building now for things that are going to happen in the future.
Turn it into an economic engine for solar panels, for algae control, for farming, for geothermal, and then overall development by building houses and recreational uses for that sea, and turn it into a vital part of the economy of Southern California. A restored sea is worth billions just in and of itself.
in increased property values, better human health values, fish and wildlife values, as opposed to a dead sea.
The estimates today are in the probably $10 billion market valuation increase just by adding water.
So, as you can see, this is a grand vision that a lot of people support. There are a lot of brilliant engineering minds, a lot of brilliant business minds behind this, and this is what the people want. And through our estimates over the years, it looks like the part of at least just doing the canal would cost about as much as a shiny new football stadium or cruise ship to save 100 miles of shoreline and the interior of Southern California, the Southwest, and improve Mexico. So I'm very supportive of this personally. I believe that it can be done in parallel with the state's smaller near-term plans. They call it the 10-year plan. So there are some habitats and dust mitigation projects that are going on at Red Hill, which has a hearing tomorrow if anyone's interested. There's a species conservation habitat. There's a wetland at Bombay Beach. There's a North Lake in concept. And then there's our project in Desert Shores as well. All of these things are complementary, especially if we have enough water to work with. I want to take a little pulse on time. I may have run a little bit over. If I have, I could definitely end it here. If not, I have a little bit more material that we can share. Please, whoever's moderating at this point, please do chime in.
Yes, hi, this is Rob.
Hey, Rob.
We are beyond, it's 4:41, but we're getting into our essentially music and entertainment segment. And I was very much enjoying what you were talking about. Without objection, I would say let's give you another few minutes and give you time to wrap it up, and we'll go from there.
Okay, I have one more piece, 9 minutes, or I'll wrap it up now.
Hey, this is Horacio, the moderator. We have Roy Durantes standing by to give a presentation after this. If you could just wrap it up in a couple of minutes so we can get to him, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, then I have one other thing that I could share and make it a little bit more brief, and then I'm excited to hear what Roy's working on. He's bringing a lot of fantastic awareness to the Salton Sea with a new TV show, and really, really happy that he's been working on this. So I'm going to hop over to some tools and resources for anyone on this call and the publics. This is our website at the EcoMedia Compass. Once again, we've been a nonprofit based in the Salton Sea for a decade now. We have the project in Desert Shores we're working on, and then quite a few different media resources that can be shared. We have 1,000 posts almost on an Instagram blog, a lot of good information. And one of the most relevant things here is this page that we have supporting long-term restoration. So this has a good amount of information about water import. This has 7 of those teams that presented water import scenarios. You can review their proposals. They were given 10 minutes each. You could download their proposals if you want to find a way to help make one out of many. And we're building this list of water import resolutions, and we're building a media list of which there are very, very many newspaper articles, news articles covering how to add water from the ocean, because I believe it is what the people want and what is the most realistic option to not only solve a problem, but to provide for the beautiful future option if we choose it. So without further ado, thank you so much, Aegis and the people on this event that have been working hard to ensure a higher vision for the restoration of the Salton Sea. And we'll turn it over to Mr. Roy Durantes. Tell us about saving the Salton Sea on TV, good sir. Thank you.